Have you ever wanted your own TV show? Have you dreamed of showcasing your talent for the world to see? Well, now you can. Have your own TV show. You can have your own 30-minute show. Not only will you be seen in the Detroit area, but you can be viewed worldwide. Be seen on WHPR Detroit Live, Comcast Cable Channel 91, on the web at TV33WHPR.com, with the TV33 app, on Roku, Google TV, Apple TV, and on Amazon Fire TV. Act now. Time slots are limited. Sign up today and get a free replay with the purchase of your time slot. For more information, call 313-868-6612. Visit our studios and receive a free TV interview to promote your business, church, or organization by appointment only.
Watch Anthony Adams. We, Detroit. We deserve better. Live on Mondays from 11 a.m. to noon on WHPR TV 33 Detroit. And live stream on Facebook. We, Detroit. We deserve better.
This is Anthony Adams on the We Detroit, We Deserve Better show. A show where I talk with you about events that are occurring in the city of Detroit and Highland Park, and to kind of give a different flavor and different perspective on those topics. I am your host, Anthony Adams, and I bring you greetings. You know, last week was a pretty exciting week, as we would say. What we had are a number of things that occurred in the city of Detroit. And one interesting thing that occurred was the comments by the mayor with respect to refusing to accept the J&J vaccine that was scheduled to be released. And what was interesting about that comment is we have here in the city of Detroit, we've had COVID has hit our community extremely, extremely hard. And so when another method of treating COVID came out, a lot of people were excited because it was a one-shot dose regimen, whereas most of the other vaccines, Moderna and things of that nature, were two-shot regimen vaccines. And so to have a one-shot regimen vaccine available certainly gives you much more flexibility in how you treat different areas of our population, where in a situation, for example, we're dealing with our homeless population, where we're dealing sometimes with our senior citizens, whether we're dealing with people who may not necessarily have a home but want the vaccine. Certainly a one-shot vaccine was pretty important because it gives you another tool in the toolkit. Well, lo and behold, there was an announcement made by the mayor himself that he was not going to accept the J&J vaccine. He felt that that vaccine wasn't good enough for Detroiters. And it was kind of an interesting perspective because, as we all recall, when COVID first hit and they were talking about running different test trials, he was more than happy to volunteer up the population of the city of Detroit to test the hydrochloroquine, I believe was what the drug that was going to be used. And so now there seems to be this complete reversal of positions, and he wasn't going to accept the J&J vaccine. Well, that set off a series of firestorms, both from locally in Detroit to as far away as Washington, D.C. And when the crap hit the fan with respect to the city's initial refusal to accept that vaccine, people were asking why. Why would you take out another tool in the kit to deal with COVID? Why were you limiting the rights of people to make free choice? Why was a decision made that seemed to be contrary to scientific evidence? And so later on in that day, there was a press conference at the White House where the White House said, oh, no, the mayor must have misspoken. He clearly did not mean that he wouldn't accept the J&J vaccine. Because we all understand in our community, there's a great hesitancy in allowing yourselves to be vaccinated. And for obvious reasons, because of public health issues, the Public Health Service, and the experimentation on black folks with the Tuskegee experiment in particularly. So black folks are naturally hesitant and reluctant about taking vaccine. And so for the mayor to suggest that a vaccine was not as good obviously set off a firestorm, and people were very concerned about that, because what appears to be happening in our community is that people are getting actually vaccinated. And so when it hit the fan, the White House issued a statement saying, well, clearly that wasn't what the mayor intended. And then the mayor on Sunday wrote what I call a mea culpa piece, which says, oh, no, I didn't really say what I meant. But I also want to talk about all the great things that I've done with respect to vaccinating the people in the city of Detroit. And so that just got me to wondering about the actual numbers of who was being vaccinated. In his article on Sunday, he indicated that more than 10% of the population in the city of Detroit has actually been vaccinated. Well, when you go back and look at the numbers say they were very happy to announce that they had reached 100,000 shot vaccines that were administered in the city of Detroit. Well, if I understand that, if you got 100,000 people, 100,000 shots administered, that at the high end, that can only be 50,000 people that have actually gotten a shot, because we were using the Moderna vaccine, and the Moderna vaccine is a 2-shot regimen. Well, if we got maybe 670,000 people who actually live in the city of Detroit, in order to have more than 10 or 11% of the population vaccinated, that number would have to have been up to 67,000 people. And that's meaning that every person who actually got a vaccine in the city of Detroit at TCF was in fact a Detroit resident. Well, we don't have information on that, and so we have no way of checking that information. What I have heard anecdotally is that all Detroiters are not being vaccinated at TCF, and that the number of Detroiters actually vaccinated was probably much lower than the number that was stated. I think another issue that I have with respect to the overall approach to how we address COVID is that we don't even begin to address the issues of underlying conditions in our community which impact the COVID virus. Whether we have emphysema, whether we have lead poisoning, whether we have diabetes, whether we have high blood pressure and cholesterol issues. There has been no evidence and no program that's been designed that would support us moving forward with what I call a Healthy Detroit initiative. You know, in order to beat the underlying conditions, people actually have to be healthy. We have to get people well. We have to get people fit. And so to have a program that's only centered around a vaccination is not a full program for robust health in our community. And we've got to begin to look at the underlying conditions, how we treat those conditions, how we actually address issues of inadequacy or disparities in healthcare treatment, food issues, because Detroit is still the food desert, and so we can't get our people in our city healthy if we don't spend the time necessary to do the things that we need to do and put the things in place in order to address those issues. And so that was just the, sort of like the one firestorm of the week. I think another firestorm which developed last week was the question of what they call the Black Bottom Saints. Apparently there was a book written by a lady who spent some time living in the city of Detroit, and she wrote a story about Black Bottom Saints. And then we find out that there was a move to create a picture of the mayor as a Black Bottom Saint. Well, a lot of people took issue with that. They took issue with that because it almost seemed like a level of cultural appropriation that was going on. And how do we actually address that issue, given the fact that Black Bottom was the victim of systemic and institutional racism, eliminated by a highway project that was designed to create black removal in the city of Detroit. And so there actually will be a press conference today at 1 o'clock where some folk are going to speak out about the deification of the mayor, because they felt that this is the wrong thing to do for the wrong reasons. And so we need to really begin to understand why we would move in that direction. As part of my continuing education to continue to read, I actually got a book called The Color of Law. The Color of Law was written by a gentleman by the name of Richard Rothstein. And what Mr. Rothstein does in his book is he chronicles how federal housing policy and federal highway policy was designed to enhance and encourage structural racism within our community. What Professor Rothstein does is he tracks the development of federal housing policy from the early 1920s, and he talks about the creation of various institutions that were designed to promote and encourage single-family housing in the city and throughout the nation. And what he chronicled in his policy, what he chronicled in his research, was the fact that you had a lot of policies that were designed explicitly to discourage black people from owning single-family homes. Now, what was interesting about this is that they found documents in the federal archives where it clearly references the fact that they were not about the business of promoting black home ownership, but they were about the business of keeping neighborhoods and cities segregated. And so how they accomplished that was a sort of a twofold process. On the one hand, what you had are what they called private deed restrictions, covenants not to sell to people who were Negroes. And what these private covenants did was prohibited a person who actually bought property from transferring that property to someone black. And so you had a legal impediment that existed within the framework of the document itself, which did not allow a white person, to sell a home to a black person. And then what you also had was the creation of what they call these homeowners associations. And these homeowners associations were groups of private people who actually lived in a housing development, a housing subdivision, where you had to buy your membership. In order to buy a house in that subdivision, you had to also have a membership, and you had to be admitted to a membership in the homeowners association. So even if you had the brave white person who wanted to sell a home to a black person, that black person had to be presented to the home ownership, and his membership had to be accepted. Well, of course, we know what happened there, that even if you were brought forward for membership, that you were not admitted into the homeowners association, and so you couldn't really buy a home, which excluded you from owning that home. And the upshot of that whole policy was that you had major large subdivisions that were being financed by federal dollars that were not allowing black folks to live in those subdivisions. And so it follows the sort of the segregated path of how actual housing was developed throughout the city of Detroit, as well as throughout the United States, because you had subdivisions that were built that were totally white, and black folks did not have the opportunity to buy homes in those houses. So what occurred over a period of time is that there began to be a series of legal challenges that were attacking what they call the restrictive covenants in the deeds, where you have prohibitions against people who could not transfer private property as they choose. It was almost a restriction on the person's ability to operate in the free market. And so you had a famous case by the name of Shelley versus Kramer, which was a case which arose in St. Louis, Missouri, or a city right outside of St. Louis, where there was a legal challenge to the restrictive deed covenant, which says you can't not sell to a black person. And in a pretty interesting Supreme Court case, the Supreme Court ruled that those restrictive covenants could not be enforced against a black person because it was a restraint on transfer of property, which was against the Constitution, and that policy could not be upheld. And so what I'm going to do now is, when I come back from my break, I'm going to dig a little deeper into how these white homeowners associations kind of got around the issue of these restrictive deed covenants being struck down, and really how federal government policy continued to perpetuate racial segregation. And then we had the advent of the Interstate Highway Act, which gave them a second tool on how they could approach the issue of black removal. They called it blight removal, but it really ended up being black removal of people. And so my name is Anthony Adams. I'm the host of We Detroit, We Deserve Better, and we'll be right back after we pay some bills around here. Thank you.
Watch Anthony Adams, We Detroit, We Deserve Better, live on Mondays from 11 a.m. to noon on WHPR TV 33 Detroit, and live stream on Facebook. We Detroit. We deserve better.
I'm Wayne County Treasurer Eric Sabri, encouraging all taxpayers to please take advantage of the several payment options available.
You can pay online by visiting the Wayne County Treasurer's Office website. Paying online is easy and convenient.
You can also download the mobile app and pay with your smartphone.
You can pay at one of 70 kiosks located throughout Wayne County.
And yes, you can always still send in your payments using the U.S. Postal Service.
If you have to visit our office in person, you must make an appointment by going to treasurer.waynecounty.com. It only takes a few minutes. Facial covering or mask is required and social distancing is observed. Your health and safety is very important to us. You can also email our office at taxinfo@waynecounty.com or call us at 313-224-5990.
If you need a car today, use credit, bruise credit, or in need of a financial miracle, my name is Mr. Green, the Financing King. Got a small down payment and proof of income. You can drive away today in a new or pre-owned car, truck, or SUV. Call me, Mr. Green, 313-350-4188. I have over 35 years of experience and an unlimited selection of reliable, certified vehicles. Call Mr. Green, the Financing King, 313.
If you or someone you know is facing eviction and has a notice to quit or a court order summons, complaint, or judgment, there is help to avoid eviction. Call the Detroit Eviction Helpline at 866-313-2520 or visit DetroitEvictionHelp.com. The City of Detroit with the State of Michigan have eviction prevention programs to assist Detroit residents with financial assistance and legal representation. Again, Detroiters can call 866-313-2520 or visit www.DetroitEvictionHelp.com. That's 866-313-2520 or go online to DetroitEvictionHelp.com. Again, Detroiters can call 866-313-2520 or visit www.DetroitEvictionHelp.com. 866-313-2520. Get help today.
Watch Anthony Adams. We, Detroit. We deserve better. Live on Mondays from 11 a.m. to noon on WHPR TV 33 Detroit. And live stream on Facebook. We, Detroit. We deserve better.
My name is Anthony Adams, and I'm the host of We Detroit, We Deserve Better, a show where I kind of talk about current topics of interest that are occurring in the city of Detroit and the city of Highland Park. Please, our call-in numbers, if you'd like to call in and ask me a question, are 313-868-0342. You can also call in to 313-868-0351. And finally, you can also call in at 313-868-4336. Those are our numbers to call in. If you'd like to ask me any questions with respect to my topics today, I talked about the J&J virus. I talked about the deification, the Black Bottom Saint controversy, and now I'm sort of talking about general economic development and housing policy, which has at its very core structural issues of racism, which really serve to inhibit investment in the city of Detroit, in the city of Highland Park. And so when we left at the break, I talked about the Supreme Court case in 1947, Shelley versus Kramer, which outlawed the use of restricted deed covenants where you could not sell your house to a black. But that didn't obviously eliminate the ability of the private community homeowners association to require you to be a member of the association in order to move into a housing subdivision. And so while the legal restriction on surface was eliminated, the practical effect of the private homeowners association served to further restrict the ability of blacks to buy homes that have been developed with federal assistance and subsidies. There was also another underlying issue with respect to how the federal authorities through the FHA and various loan institutions would not invest in housing for black folks. And so what also occurred is that you needed, in order to build these very large single-family subdivisions, you needed to have a federal insurance that would protect the investment of the bank in building the subdivision. And so a developer would come in with his plans, they would lay out a subdivision, they would say they're going to build 100 homes, and they would get federal insurance that would allow them to borrow the money to build the homes. And so what the banks begin requiring on the part of the developer is that assurances from the developer that they would not sell homes in subdivisions to blacks. And so even though you didn't have the legal impediment of the restrictive deed covenant in play, now you have banks that were imposing their own conditions with respect to the type of lending and type of homes that could be sold to black folks. And as a result of that, even though the legal impediment was removed, you still had a factual impediment which prohibited blacks from buying homes in some of these larger new subdivisions that were being built across the country. The Seminole subdivision obviously is one in Philadelphia, right outside of Philadelphia, called Levittown. Levittown at that time was the largest single-family housing subdivision that was built, and they did not allow black folks to live in that. And so there were a number of other issues that were underlying that kept blacks from moving into these houses because of both the legal impediment as well as you had the practical impediment of the Homeowners Association, which required you to have membership in the association. Well, that's very relevant here in the city of Detroit, is because we had hundreds of homeowners associations throughout the entire city. And as we know from the history of Detroit, that the history of Detroit is based on segregations of population. And so what occurred is that blacks traditionally lived in a certain area of the city of Detroit. When they came to Detroit, they primarily moved in Black Bottom, which was a very vibrant, thriving community which was located in downtown Detroit. Well, another way of dealing with Negroes in their housing was the advent of the Federal Highway Administration. The Federal Highway Administration was designed to set up a series of highways that would stretch throughout the United States, ostensibly to serve as a defense mechanism, allowing the United States to move troops and equipment and things across the nature. But it also had a very interesting side effect. And that side effect was the advent of a policy that was designed to eliminate and destroy black communities. Now, I'm not talking about this because I think it. I'm talking about it because, I've seen documents which support the notion that when federal highways were designed, they were designed with the specific preference, if they could, of always eliminating or destroying or dividing black communities throughout the nation. And so now what we end up with is a two-pronged approach. On the one hand, you got FHA policies, Federal Housing Administration policies, which are depriving people of the right to get basic insurance to buy a home, not financing developers who would build integrated subdivisions, private citizen groups that required you to have membership in order to move in a house. And then if, in fact, all that didn't work, what they began to do was they began the process of what we know as urban renewal, but what we know as Negro removal. And the development of the highway system, in particular in the city of Detroit, was specifically designed and encouraged to destroy black communities. And which is why the whole Black Bottom saint deification comes about, because here you have a situation where someone is being deified about a development that was destroyed based on a racist policy of the Federal Highway Act and the city fathers in the city of Detroit who encouraged that type of conduct in our city. And so it just doesn't make sense for us to move back, but for us to move forward and understand the implications of how federal housing policy has actually hurt us here in the city of Detroit. Because also what you also had the advent of insurance redlining. And so you have FHA policy that was designed not to encourage black ownership. You have blacks that were attempting to buy homes but could not get the necessary insurance, and so it forced them into a lot of I would say, economically uneven situations, like entering into what we call as a land contract. A land contract essentially is an installment agreement that once you make every payment on this land contract, that you then will actually own your home and you have equity in your home. Well, we know from experience that a lot of these land contracts were badly drafted. They were drafted in a manner that was one-sided for the property owner, and that if in fact you lost or failed to make a payment, even if you made your payments religiously for a 10-year period, you built absolutely no equity in the home. You would lose that equity, and then you would lose your house. And so what you ended up with are blacks occupying houses under economic terms that were pretty rigorous and pretty strenuous. And it was something that really needed to be addressed. And so we've got, on the one hand, we've got FHA policy. On another hand, we have federal highway policy. On the third hand, we have a private homeowners association. On the fourth hand, we have insurance issues. And then we have bad economic arrangements for African Americans in the housing market. And so a lot of those things obviously had to change, and we needed to change them because they still exist to this day. When we look at housing policy and how money flows in our community, we still have a lot of structural issues associated with what I call the appraisal process. The appraisal process says that if I'm going to lend you money, I need to make sure that the value of your home is comparable to other homes in that particular neighborhood. Well, if you have a situation where you have very few sales because the transactions that occur in our neighborhood are unrecorded transactions, then you end up with a much smaller pool of homes from which to make your appraisal market. And so with a limited market, you end up with depressed values. And when you have depressed values, the appraisers on their face say, I can't lend you the money because this house doesn't appraise out for what you think it is. Now, we know that there's a severe diminution in value of homeownership in African American communities. And so again, what we're faced with was a situation where we had valuable homes that were not valued. And because you couldn't get an appraisal that would support the value that you knew it was worth, when you look at comparable homes, for example, in between Detroit and Grosse Pointe, we know there was a wide range of difference in the actual value of what those homes are worth, even though they're practically the same homes. And so with the lack of appraisal supporting value, what you begin to have is a diminution of economic value in homes within the city of Detroit, which served as a depressing mechanism to reduce value and reduce equity of people who actually lived in the city. And so if in fact I wanted to borrow money to do a home repair job, for example, I couldn't get that money because my house wouldn't appraise out, and it put me in a much difficult position because then I'm forced to either go out of pocket in order to try to fix it. But because it's a home, obviously the best way to finance it is through the utilization of the equity in your home. But because the equity in your home is devalued, then I can't get the money necessary to fix my house, which obviously leads to a deterioration in the quality of the home that I'm living in, and ultimately what I would call a diminution in that value, which would then force people to either make a choice. Either I stay in this home and just try to fight it out. And we see it oftentimes when we ride through the city. We see the blue tarps on the roofs where people are trying to stay in their houses. We see siding that's damaged and needs to be repaired. And we just need to have a much better mechanism because these are federal policies, because banks are regulated by the comptroller of the currency, and we need to have much more engagement in them changing their housing policies and housing strategies so that we can have a much more robust investment in the city of Detroit. And so we're going to take a break. We'll be right back. We gotta do some commercials, and when we come back, we're going to explore how we actually begin the process of moving forward with a robust economic policy that's designed to encourage home ownership, that's designed to encourage actual investment in the city of Detroit, that's designed to make sure that people have access to the resources that they need. So my name is Anthony Adams. I am the host of We Detroit, We Deserve Better, and we'll be right back after we take a station break.
Watch Anthony Adams, We Detroit, We Deserve Better, live on Mondays from 11 a.m. to noon on WHPR TV 33 Detroit, and live stream on Facebook. We Detroit, We Deserve Better.
There's a new financial empowerment center located in the Wayne County Treasurer's Office on the 5th floor of 400 Monroe in Detroit.
If you or someone you know needs help with their finances, budgeting, and making monthly payments, the Detroit Financial Empowerment Center can help.
Wayne Metro Community Action Agency has counselors ready to provide free one-on-one counseling to help you address issues related to utility bills, taxes, and other financial matters. We can also help you improve your credit score.
Have you ever wanted your own TV show? Have you dreamed of showcasing your talent for the world to see? Well, now you can. Have your own TV show. You can have your own 30-minute show. Not only will you be seen in the Detroit area, but you can be viewed worldwide. Be seen on WHPR Detroit Live, Comcast Cable Channel 91, on the web at TV33WHPR.com, with the TV33 app, on Roku, Google TV, Apple TV, and on Amazon Fire TV. Act now. Time slots are limited. Sign up today and get a free replay with the purchase of your time slot. For more information, call 313-868-6612. Visit our studios and receive a free TV interview to promote your business, church, or organization by appointment only. Watch WHPR and TV33 when you want, where you want, how you want. WHPR is now in your pocket. Download our free app by going to the App Store or Google Play and enter WHPR TV in the search engine. And there we are. You can download WHPR TV or radio. You heard about it. Now come be a part of it. Roku Detroit Worldwide. Approximately 8 million viewers.
I'm Attorney Carl Collins III. I'm Attorney Carl Collins III. Hello, I'm Attorney Carl Collins III. If you've been injured and you need help, make the best call on your worst day. Call me at 855-CAR-HIT-YOU. That's 855-CAR-HIT-YOU.
Watch Anthony Adams, We, Detroit. We deserve better. Live on Mondays from 11 a.m. to noon on WHPR TV 33 Detroit. And live stream on Facebook. We, Detroit. We deserve better.
Welcome back. I'm Anthony Adams. I'm the host of We Detroit, We Deserve Better, a show where we talk about current issues that are impacting our community. Today, we spoke on really 3 different topics. We talked about the J&J vaccine debacle on the mayor's office. We also talked about the Black Bottom deification, the Black Bottom Saints issue, and there'll be a press conference today at 1 o'clock at the old Miller High School to kind of deal with that issue. And then my third issue today, which I was spending much more time going into detail, is the issue of economic development, housing policy, and how federal housing policies have aided in the discrimination and really the disinvestment here in the city of Detroit. And so when we last left, we talked about what really needs to be done in order to begin to change the trajectory of how housing policy is shaped in the city of Detroit. We know that the city of Detroit receives millions of dollars in federal money that's designed to assist and promote affordable housing development. We also have another entity by the name of the Michigan State Housing Development Authority, which has a charter mission and is an affordable housing agency. And what this affordable housing agency is designed to do is to promote and invest in low-income or tax credit housing. Tax credit housing is housing that is developed and is restricted to people who actually live at a certain income level. And so when you have these policies and federal money, you have state dollars available, the question is, why are we not being much more robust in how we lend to create and stabilize affordable housing in the city of Detroit? Well, I think what we find in those policies is almost the same thing that we found in a lot of the Federal Housing Administration policies that were designed to encourage single-family housing. And so what happens is you still have an appraisal requirement necessary so that before we actually can make an investment in a single-family house in the city of Detroit, and the Michigan State Housing Development Authority actually has affordable housing products that they can use to finance homes and finance housing rehabilitation. we run into the same problem. We have the same problem with respect to how appraisals are come up with. And if your property doesn't appraise out, you end up in the same situation you were in if we were under a federal housing administration policy. The appraisal issue is one of the major problems that we need to begin to address if in fact we're going to encourage rehabilitation of housing in the city of Detroit, as well as the actual construction of single-family housing in Detroit. Now, now, never mind the fact, we have 40,000 kind of vacant structures in the city of Detroit which need to be rehabbed. We've got to figure out a much better mechanism on how we can do that, how we go about the business of rehabbing our homes. My position is that the policies need to be changed, because if we've got people who are holding onto their property, desperately holding onto their property, and they need a roof, and they need siding, and they need a new furnace, they need new air conditioners, and things of that nature in order to allow them to live in their houses, then we need to make the money available either through the Michigan State Housing Development Authority. They need to be much more robust in how they lend for single-family housing in the city. They need to almost eliminate the appraisal requirement, because it acts as an inhibitor against them lending money in the property. Because the property's value don't flow out, then they can't make an investment. It's no different than being under federal housing administration policy. The appraisal issue is a major problem because it stops dollars from flowing in communities for people who need them. And so if I have a man or a woman who owns a house, they have a job, and they're able to pay for the money that they want to borrow, we shouldn't require an appraisal on that. They simply should be given the money, whatever security that the bank needs, in order to allow these folks to stay in their homes. We know that the rate of foreclosure for single-family mortgages actually is very low. And so it becomes a very safe investment, and also allows for us to stabilize our communities in a manner that keeps people in their homes. I always say that the best blight removal strategy that we could have is a strategy that's designed to keep people in their homes. And to the extent we can lend money to folk who want to upgrade and improve their existing home, those dollars should be available, because it certainly aids in strengthening our neighborhoods and keeping people in their homes. In addition, we also got to change some of the guidelines and requirements with respect to how we actually use our federal dollars in our community. If we're going to be in a position where we have affordable housing dollars, we need to make those affordable housing dollars available to people who live in single-family homes. A large portion of the economic development dollars that go towards affordable housing are spent in the area of multifamily housing. And I have no issue with respect to multifamily housing, because some people certainly want to live in a multifamily housing environment. But if we got people who actually want to live in a single-family house and gone through the training and understand what it takes to be in a single-family house, then we need to begin to move people into home ownership. The reality is that in the city of Detroit, our percentage of home ownership is less than 50%. I believe that we have more renters than owners. It's 55% rental to homeowner formula. That is not a recipe for creating a viable community, and it's because people don't have skin in the game. You can actually ride through neighborhoods and tell where we have large renter populations versus private homeowner situations, and we've got to begin to move people into home ownership, because that is how you build equity in America. And what we've experienced through the tax foreclosure process, when we had more than 150,000 people lose their homes as a result of tax foreclosure, there's been a tremendous loss of equity and wealth in that tax foreclosure process. So if we're going to strengthen our communities and build a much viable city, then we've got to be about the business of encouraging the creation and the development and the stabilization of single-family housing in our city. We've got to understand that policies that were designed to be benign on their face actually have an insidious impact on our community because of insurance requirements, because of insurance redlining, because of mortgage redlining, because of inability to get proper appraisals. All these things work in concert to impact our community, and we need to understand how these policies need to be changed, because if we don't begin the process of redirecting this change, then we'll continue to be in the situation where we are, which is low percentages of home ownership, very little economic investment in the stabilizations of housing in the city of Detroit. We continue to have people who actually lose their homes because they simply don't have the equity in that home necessary to do the things that they need to do, which creates more blight situation because now you create more vacant houses in the city of Detroit. And if we're going to begin to reverse that trend, we've got to be in a position where we shape the policy, shape the direction on what needs to be done, and move ourselves towards creating home ownership. Our goal in the city of Detroit should be to create more than 25,000 to 50,000 new homeowners in the city. If you got 40,000 vacant properties in the city of Detroit and the houses that can be rehabbed, then we've got to begin to make these houses productive, put them back on the tax rolls. It's a job creation strategy because now you have people doing the cement work, you got people pouring driveways, you got people fixing porches, you got people putting shingles on roofs, you got people putting windows in, you've got people putting floors in. It is a full economic job development strategy that we've got to be engaged in. Because if we're engaged in that and we're providing the skills and the training for our young men and women to work, then we create a much better environment for ourselves. We have fewer houses that are blighted. We have more houses that are occupied. We have more houses that are paying property taxes. We've got more houses where people are able to live comfortably in their homes and provide for their families. It is a mechanism and a means for strengthening our neighborhoods, to strengthen our communities, to be a source of pride and empowerment in what we do and how we do it. Because if we do the necessary things to break down the policies that are designed not to encourage home ownership, not to encourage stable neighborhoods in our community, we begin to strengthen ourselves. It's a message of self-empowerment and hope that we need to be about. And so what that does is it allows us to have much better neighborhoods. It allows us to provide employment opportunities for the people who live here. It provides for us to provide safe routes for our children to walk to school because they're not walking past a series of vacant and abandoned housing. It does all the things we need to do in order to strengthen our community. But you first got to recognize where the policy issues are, how we can address the change in those policy issues to put ourselves in a position to confront systemic racism, confront institutional racism, because they are heavily entwined in why we aren't able to move our city forward. And so it gives us the opportunity to address deep-seated issues on how these things need to be changed. Now, why do you think they haven't changed? Well, because there's another issue at play here, which is the economic exploitation of people who live in our community. And when I come back from my break, I'm going to talk about sort of the advent predatory lending practices that do exist in our neighborhoods that are designed to extract equity out of our communities and enrich those with whom we have to borrow from. And so my name is Anthony Adams. I am the host of We Detroit, We Deserve Better. And when we come back from our break, I'm going to talk about another aspect of the economic relationship between housing, stripping of wealth, and things that impact our community and our ability to move forward as a people.
Watch Anthony Adams, We Detroit, We Deserve Better, live on Mondays from 11 a.m. to noon on WHPR TV 33 Detroit, and live stream on Facebook. We Detroit, We Deserve Better.
We at Watkins Broadcasting care about the health and safety of our viewers and listeners. During this novel coronavirus pandemic, please protect yourself and others. Wash your hands well and often. Avoid touching your face. Cough and sneeze into your sleeve. Practice social distancing. Stay at least 6 feet away from others when in public and only leave the house when it's essential. Stay safe. You are important to us.
I've always been a runner, but I've never run from anything, and neither has my city.
Do you want to be a Detroit police officer? Sir, yes, sir! Up! Amen!
It's something special to protect the people closest to you, the ones you've known all your life, your neighbors, your friends. I was born in this city, and I'm not going anywhere. This is my home. That's why I wear the shield.
Shelley Books and More. Short stories, poetry, and art contests for the youth. Cash prizes, $300 to $500 plus prizes. No entry fee. Go to ShelleyBooksandMore.com. Contact Shelley at 313-778-8009. Submit entries now and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Shelley Books and More. Also, listen to Shelley Books and More every other Tuesday, 4 p.m. on FM 88.1 WHPR. Radio we can see.
Hi, this is LaWanda.
This is RJ Watkins.
Coming to you to bring you some information about the #1 detox in the nation, Lemon Burn. Lemon Burn helps to turn the fat into fit. It's for you, a happier, healthier you. Because you know healthy is the new beautiful. An all-natural way to improve your health. It promotes a healthy digestive system, attacks and reduces belly fat, as well as gives you energy. Need to get yours today. Call 313-868-6612.
Don't forget to exercise and eat right.
Watch Anthony Adams, We, Detroit. We deserve better. Live on Mondays from 11 a.m. to noon on WHPR TV 33 Detroit. And live stream on Facebook. We, Detroit. We deserve better.
My name is Anthony Adams of We Detroit, We Deserve Better, a show where I talk about topics of interest to me and hopefully topics of interest to you, current events here in our city of Detroit and Highland Park. And so today we were talking about the issue of a federal housing policy and how it really stimulated and encouraged the segregation in housing patterns. We also talked about how the Federal Highway Administration was used as a very convenient tool to destroy a lot of black neighborhoods throughout America. When you look at the development of the federal highway system, it seems that they took a pen and they made sure that wherever the highway was, that they designed it in a manner that would impact black communities. We also talked about the insurance issues associated with how houses were financed and the inability of black folks to get houses because of lack of insurance of products that they could use to buy housing. We've also talked about private homeowners associations that existed throughout the country and were very prevalent here in the city of Detroit, which led to the development of racially segregated housing patterns in the city. And so now we were also beginning to talk about another form of exploitation in the African American community, which is what we would call sort of the high-risk loan portfolio, the subprime portfolio. And what was found empirically in evidence was that black person, white person of the same economic status, black folks actually were denied mortgages at much higher rates than white. And so what that did, that denial rate did, was force a lot of blacks into bad housing products, or what they became known as subprime loans. Subprime loans are loans that are not considered investment worthy, but they carry a very high rate of return because the interest rates on a subprime mortgage were dramatically different than interest rate on a regular mortgage. For example, you know, my mortgage rate is something like 3% on our house. But if I was in a subprime market, my mortgage rate would probably be about 10 or 11%. Which is a substantial amount of interest that you're paying, and how those financial instruments were structured. You're paying a lot of interest for a much longer period of time in order to pay that house off. And so what happened with the subprime market is that blacks were inordinately put in that market. And when we had the housing crisis and foreclosure, because a lot of those financial instruments had what they call variable interest rates, where the interest rate would go up or down depending upon what the climate was, a lot of people lost their houses as a result of subprime lending because it inordinately focused on the African American community and wiped us out. I also talked earlier about the use of the land contract, which is another form of economic exploitation within our community. Because you don't build equity, regardless of how long you've made payments on the house, your equity doesn't exist until after you've actually bought the home. Another way of exploiting our community. In addition, you know, we have a proliferation of check cashing stores, high interest lending in our community, which keeps people on a perpetual treadmill, if you will, trying to pull themselves out of economic doldrums. And so what you end up with are bad housing options. You end up with options that don't allow you to build equity in your home. You end up with options that keep you economically exploited, and it doesn't allow you to build the wealth necessary in order to have equity to pass on to your kids. And so what we were putting forth then were a series of what we call policy changes on how we can begin to address that issue. The first policy change, and one of the most important, obviously, is the elimination of the appraisal method for determining value in a home. If I live in a house, if I have an income, if I have my contractors lined up and my pricing firm and fixed, I should be in a position to borrow the money necessary to improve my house. It means much more to me to improve my house and to provide you with the equity because it gives you a stake in the game. And so we've got to begin to change sort of the appraisal process. I say eliminate it, but we'll accept changes if those changes are designed to encourage lending in the city of Detroit. We clearly need to do that. In addition, we also have got to examine the issue of our insurance rates. What are people actually paying for insurance in the city of Detroit? We know oftentimes that when houses are devalued, it's very difficult to get insurance. And so if, in fact, there is some type of issue, like a fire occurs, if the people are uninsured, then it's so much more difficult in order to fix their houses. And so we've got to begin to look at sort of low-risk insurance pools that allow people to insure their homes so that if, in fact, they have an occurrence, that they're able to get their home fixed and maintain a presence in that home. It's much more important for us to keep people in their homes than to force people out of their homes. In addition, we've got to begin to use much more of our federal housing money to stimulate home ownership and development of affordable housing subdivisions here in the city of Detroit. It simply does not make sense to have what I call these leveraged gentrified projects, which have a percentage of affordable housing units in them, versus providing folks with an actual single-family house and providing them with the subsidies they need in order, for example, to write down their interest rate so that they could have a home that they can afford. Because I might not be able to afford a $100,000 home at a 7% interest rate, but I actually might be able to afford that same home if my interest rate is only 3%. And so that puts us in a much better position by writing interest rates down, for example, through use of our federal dollars that will allow us to put more people in their homes. We also need to return to the days of what they call old sweat equity. You know, we have a lot of vacant houses in the city of Detroit, so if you have the sweat equity necessary to go into that house, to clean that house up, then we provide you with dumpsters and you stake that as your home, then why are we not encouraging folks to move in these houses and to take ownership of the property themselves? We don't need to maintain 40,000 vacant houses in the city of Detroit. What we need to do is maintain people to move forward and go into these houses so that they can be redeveloped, that they can be repurposed, that they can have an economic vitality and provide the people who actually have taken ownership of their property. It gives them a stake in the game. It allows them to move forward to do the types of things that they do and allows us to strengthen our community. And so those are just a number of policy changes that are possible that we need to encourage. Because when you begin to look at the landscape of who is actually investing in the city of Detroit, where are those dollars coming from? We have to ask ourselves, why are we not using the money that we have in order to do the things that we need to do to encourage people to be in their homes? You know, a person's home is their castle, and we've got to be in a situation where we continue to encourage home ownership, that we begin to reverse the trend of absence of home ownership in the city of Detroit, that we've got to begin to reverse the trend of having more people who are owners rather than renters. You know, when you came to Detroit in the 70s and 80s, you know, percentage of home ownership was around 80%. It was the highest percentage of home ownership in America. And now we're the lowest. That is not excellence within our community. We need to be about the business of creating economic excellence. We need to be about the business of creating home ownership. We need to be about the business of creating stable developments, stable communities, empowering our young people to get the skills necessary to redevelop these homes. It becomes a job creation strategy that's designed to strengthen the backbone of our community, to provide people with a sense of self-worth and empowerment. I keep going back to that word because it's so important. We need to empower people in our neighborhoods, in our communities, to do the things that they need to do in order to have a vested stake in what goes on in this city. And if we do that, we will build the strong communities that we need. We will have safe communities because people will have a home that they value, that they will look out and support their neighbors, that they'll chip in and help one another. It builds the community confidence that we need and so desperately desire to have. Because when you look at the history of Detroit and you look at the history of African Americans in this town, it's always been one about the business of self-empowerment, self-fulfillment. How do we move our community together, forward together in a manner that is constructive, that does what's necessary in order for us to have a beautiful city. And so these are just a few things that struck my mind today from my reading. Obviously, I go back again to this book entitled The Color of Law, which was a great expose of how federal housing policy and federal highway policy inhibited and restricted economic development in our community. It also allowed me to see the full array of products that were used to economically exploit our community and how we need to begin to move away from allowing our people to be victims of subprime lending, to be victims of high interest land contract mortgages where they build no equity that allow us to do the things that we need to do to protect ourselves and our community. The more information people have with respect to the tools that are out there to hurt them, the better off our people will be. And so we can begin the process of laying down a framework that allows the city to work for us. Because if it's not working for us, it's working against us. And so these are just a few topics that I wanted to bring to your attention today. My name, again, is Anthony Adams. I am the host of We Detroit, We Deserve Better, and I will be back next week with stimulating topics of interest to our community. We Detroit, we deserve better. Thank you.
Watch Anthony Adams, We Detroit, We Deserve Better, live on Mondays from 11 a.m. to noon on WHPR TV 33 Detroit, and live stream on Facebook. We Detroit, we deserve better.